Welcome back to the Power of Joy, moving you from uncertainty to empowerment. I'm Scottlin. Thank you so much for joining me today. Please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on today. And I'm so happy to have you here because I have a special guest today, Will Caminada, who I'm so grateful to have here. Will is a spiritual guide, an author, a singer-songwriter. And he offers guidance and healing and support through the power of meditation and breath work and music and words. And I can't think of a better fit to talk to us today about joy and more ways to move away from fear and suffering and towards joy. Will, you were born in Brazil, is that right?
Yes.
And you've worked in various countries. I think you said England, Thailand, Germany, the US. And I know you've gained a wealth of experience in all those places. So welcome. So happy to have you here.
Thank you, Anne, for having me. It's a pleasure.
And today I think we're going to talk about emotional healing, especially through heart opening and how that can move us closer to our joy, away from our fear and suffering, finding emotional healing out of that fear and suffering and moving to a place of more contentment and joy. Tell me a little bit about your work and what got you excited about doing this in the first place.
Yes, well, I think that what got me here today was definitely my passion for art. As you mentioned, I'm also a singer-songwriter. So ever since I was little, I loved art, and that was my passion. And I had dreams, still have dreams, but I had those dreams to become a singer and songwriter. So I guess that's what led me to go to other countries and pursue music. And I think in that pursuit, I found myself, like my soul, because I started doing a lot of like healing work and inner work. And I started having a consistent spiritual practice. And then from that point on, it was kind of like just a way, I just have to find a way to mix the art and the spirituality aspect of it and the teaching as well. So essentially that's what I do today. I help people in their spiritual awakening journey, in their healing journey through, like you mentioned, through meditation and breath work mostly, but also through words and through art, because I'm still writing and releasing music. So yes, I just do a little combo now of all the things that I've developed over the years.
That's amazing. And that's so much what so many people are doing now. And I love it that so many of us are specializing in multiple ways because it really brings so many more aspects to our work than just being a teacher or a leader or a healer or a coach. And adding to that the other things, whether it's podcasts, I know you do that, writing, my new book, Live for Joy, which is almost, I think we're like 29 days approximately from launch. So I'm super excited about that. And most of you who follow me have seen me posting about that. My book, Live for Joy. It's full of inspiration and motivation, just helping you to take practical steps to live in your best self. So, and then you also have your book, Soul Art. Is that right?
Yes, from darkness to light.
From darkness to light. Okay. Okay. So I see
I
it
had,
behind you there. And it
yeah, I
says
had the
Soul
soul
Art.
art, but I had to take off the soul art.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. Okay.
Issues,
I
so
was
it's
just reading it
from,
over your shoulder there. I was cheating.
just from darkness to light. Yeah.
So amazing. So let's jump into have you give us a little bit of information introduction around what you do with heart opening and how healing through heart opening can really help bring us back into our joy. What does that mean? I know you're a spiritual teacher. Some of my viewers are spiritual practitioners, some of them aren't. So tell us a little bit about that and what that means.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said, I just want to preface this by saying that I offer a spiritual perspective on topics. And when we're talking about emotional healing, I'm not talking about healing as in physical healing, although I do believe that the physical issues stem from our emotional bodies. But when we're talking about healing, from that more holistic approach, we're talking about the energetic bodies that we have. It's not just the physical body. We have a emotional body, we have a mental body, and we have a spirit. And so it's all about, my definition of healing is the journey into the remembrance of who you truly are, of who we truly are, which I believe is light and love. Like we all came from that essence of light. We all share that one consciousness. We are all one. Obviously, we experience this 3D human experience. And so we experience separation and duality and all of the things that we've witnessed and we experience. And so the healing on a more practical level is just really the undoing of those conditioning and programming that we've been through as a human being. And when we're talking about emotional healing, it's all to do with the heart. So, and not our heart as in the organ, but the energy area in our heart, we can also call the chakra. So it's all in this, in our chest area and shoulders and arms and even like our lower throat. This is our heart chakra. And so we, in a nutshell, we have 7 main chakras. They are like energy points in our body, in our human system. Each of these chakras, they are responsible for a different aspect of our human system and spiritual as well. And so the heart chakra is related to emotions and to love, self-acceptance, forgiveness. And so as we experience this life and we go through our ups and downs, we experience pain, we experience trauma, heartbreaks, then we tend to close the heart chakra. We tend to close the heart. And when you live from a blocked heart or a closed heart, life can get very difficult. And so that's when we are sort of stuck in that loop of suffering because we can't really access that love within.
So, and then just to back up a moment, I know probably most people these days are familiar with, at least have a general understanding, if not more, of the chakras. But these came originally, this spiritual, the spiritual message was pretty much a formulation of health, mind, body connection from the East, from India, correct?
Yes, that's
okay,
correct.
Great.
Yeah.
So that's, and so this kind of description of the mind, body, soul connection has been around for thousands of years. With
yes,
the chakras.
even more, because it's not just a Hinduism thing. It goes way back then because the chakras are also essentially, they're like energy points that connect us with the whole universe. Because like even Mother Earth has chakras in different parts of the world. And so other planets also have chakras. So these are points that literally connect all of us, connect the planets, and connect to the energy of the whole universe. We have 7 main chakras that they're like the most known ones. We have more, but like in a nutshell, we have the 3 lower ones, that are more related to the human aspects of our
Mm-hmm.
system, like our primal needs to
Mm-hmm.
survive as a human being. And then we have the three upper chakras that connect us to the spiritual realm, to our spiritual essence. And so the heart is in the middle. So the heart is really bridging these three lower chakras and the three upper chakras. In other words, it's bridging our humanness with our spiritual selves. It's also bridging emotion with reason, ego with spirit, masculine energy and feminine energy. So really the heart is like, I wouldn't say it's the most important because they're all really important. So it's all about aligning them, but really focusing on your heart, because when you open your heart and you have a really healthy, balanced heart chakra, all of these other chakras will align. And it's sort of
Mm-hmm.
like the portal for you to access more of the spiritual realm, more happiness, more joy, and more love.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Um, I'm grabbing myself a little cough drop here today. I'm not sick. There's so much pollen in the air that I just seem to have this permanent tickle like right here. It's been there for like
Yeah, it's
3 weeks.
horrible when it happens.
um, so let me ask you this. So let's kind of go through, I guess, a bit of a scenario. So say someone emotionally is feeling, um, and I know this from working with my own clients too. A lot of people hold this pain. It's like a pressure and pain and tightness, like in the middle of the chest, anywhere from here, which is often like a fear of speaking, to the heart and lungs and the physical body where it just feels tight and compressed. Or a lot of people, I even for myself, when I experience anxiety, it's often like right in the sternum, which is like sure still part of that, where it just kind of feels like you have this stone or a golf ball or something that's kind of just stuck. And it's usually when you're feeling, or at least when for myself and most of the clients I work with, it's usually when you're feeling emotionally either discouraged or depressed or stuck, which is all of those are a form of suffering, which I think, we kind of forget, we say, oh, I'm a little depressed right now, but that is definitely a form of suffering. And so let's say someone knows they're having an experience in their life right now that where they're stuck. Let's say they have to make a big decision, or they are very discouraged with their work or something like that. They kind of know what's bringing the stuck energy, or what they think is causing the stuck energy. And it's really interfering with them really connecting to their joy. So what is involved in, finding, like, clearing, healing, recovery from that kind of practical space?
Yeah. I think there are certain things that we experience that blocks those energy points.
Mm-hmm.
So what you were talking about, could also be related to the chakra that's lower than the heart, which is the solar plexus, which has to do
Mm-hmm.
with willpower and
Oh,
motivation and finding
right.
that inner strength to do things. And
Mm-hmm.
also, like you mentioned, the throat chakra that has to do
Mm-hmm.
with your authenticity and expression, and really express yourself creatively
Mm-hmm.
as well. And so
Mm-hmm.
they are all kind of related. So that's why I
Mm-hmm.
always talk about alignment.
Mm-hmm.
The heart chakra especially has to do with any kind of unfelt emotions. And so that's what
Mm-hmm.
blocks the heart.
Ah.
Suppressing emotions, repressing emotions. So maybe that one person really loves something else other than what they're doing, and
Mm-hmm.
they're not being able to do that or to
Mm-hmm.
express that in a creative way. And so they're repressing all of that. Anything that is repressive blocks these chakras. And so especially when we're talking about emotional healing, anything that is unfelt, and I always say that emotions are just energy in motion. It's like literally just energy that comes through you and wants to leave you, but sometimes we just hold them. And whenever we feel or we don't feel our emotions, those energies just become stagnant in our system. And that's what causes the blockages. And
Wow.
I usually talk about the three uns for the heart. And so the first un is unresolved grief. That's one of the things that really causes the heart to be blocked and shut. Unforgiveness is a big one too, and that's to do with also perhaps guilt and shame and unworthiness. That's the third one. So not feeling good enough, not feeling strong enough or brave enough, not enough in general. So these are the three main things that cause the heart to be shut. And the other side of the spectrum is true too. Like some people feel too much, and they have they have a really wide open heart chakra, and so the emotions in that case cause overwhelm, and so people get lost in that way, in those waves of emotions, if that makes sense.
No, that makes an enormous amount of sense. Um, that's incredibly useful. Yeah. So even for me, I mean, I have a healing empathic nature. I'm a very sensitive person to others, to the world around me. So yeah. So whenever I feel that overwhelm in myself, for example, yeah, I get really stuck. And it's usually, I don't, I'll just use myself as a guinea pig example right now. So I don't have a sense of losing in my life, in my world, my compassion or empathy with others, but I do lose compassion, patience, and empathy and love for myself when I get in a state of overwhelm, which I'm thinking too, based on what you just said about the solar plexus, for me is usually coming from there, probably kind of from a conflict of willpower, you know, having to make big decisions, and then, you know, not being sure of a sense of direction once in a while, and then getting that emotional stuckness where I just, you know, I feel like I'm not in the flow. And most of the time I do feel like I'm in a beautiful flow, and I love that. I feel very alive and open. And I think one of the most frustrating things when these kind of emotions, energy and motion happens, is when you're in that stuck place, you don't often know how to get out of it. You know, the logical mind will say there's nothing, you know, maybe there is something really wrong, or maybe it's not that big a deal. It could be either one, right? But either it's a huge thing you can't change, or it's something you can change, but you feel stuck or powerless. And then how do you move forward from there when you feel like your heart is just kind of frozen? Like, how do you create movement?
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because like in very simplistic terms, feeling is healing. And healing is feeling. So like you need to feel in order to heal. But that can be very difficult for some people. So if I were to just give like a tip now, is the most important thing is self-awareness, which is what you're sharing, is like, where am I in this spectrum? Am I on the side of the spectrum that represses emotions and feels very, like, find it very hard to handle emotions? Or am I on the other side of the spectrum, meaning I just feel a lot and I just get overwhelmed and lost in those waves of emotions? You want to be somewhere in between, meaning you feel things, you're vulnerable, you're okay with all of the emotions, whether we perceive them as negative or positive. We just feel them, but we're not taken over by them, and we're not repressing them, because the more we repress, then the more stuck we're going to feel. So that would be the first things, like, where am I in this in this spectrum. If I'm someone who represses emotions, which is what I used to be in the past, there was like a lot of repression. um, I need to find ways to express those emotions. I need to find ways to be okay with feeling emotions. If I'm
Mm-hmm.
on the other side of the spectrum, meaning I just feel too much, I have this, we call it overactive heart chakra, which
Mm-hmm.
is just, there's so much energy flowing, then I need to find my center. I need to,
Mm.
which is what I call heart center. In both cases, we want to find that heart center, because when you are anchored in your heart center, you feel safe to feel emotions, and you know your way back to your heart. So I know that this may sound like very poetic, like what practically is the heart center. Practically speaking is you you know that you are not your emotions, you know that you're not your thoughts, you know that even if you're going through an emotional turmoil, or you're going through a hurricane, uh, in this analogy, you feel safe to go through it, because you know that it's a temporary
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
moment, and you're gonna find your way back into your heart.
I love that. I love that. So, so then moving kind of to your area of specialty, when you're helping someone kind of move through that space and find that heart healing, like what happens, or what does that look like, or what would someone, what could someone possibly expect um, to need to do or bring to the table, or when they say they came to work with you and they wanted to work on moving through that stuck space, then what would that look like?
Yeah. um, Spiritual practice is big. um, there are various ways that you can practice. um, I work mainly with meditation and breath work, but you can do meditation, you can do breath work, you can work with sounds, so sound healing, you can work with journaling. When they come to me, to my sessions or my classes, we do breath work and meditation. So it's a combination, because
Mm-hmm.
the breath work helps you release those stagnant
Mm-hmm.
emotions. It's a very cathartic experience. You keep breathing, like the breath is so powerful beyond our understanding.
Yeah.
It really sets us in a very deep place where we can sort of like dive deep into our subconscious mind and really like explore those emotions that we perhaps don't allow ourselves to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you get to that place and you just keep breathing, you really, essentially, you're really releasing those
Mm-hmm.
stagnant energies more and more. And people really feel, like I feel, a lot of energy being released. Sometimes we scream or we sound and we shout. So that's also very healing. There are
Mm-hmm.
different ways that people experience that release. Sometimes it's through sound, sometimes it's
Mm-hmm.
through moving their
Mm-hmm.
bodies, sometimes it's even speaking things that they are too afraid to speak out loud. And so when they sort of release those energies, they're cleansing their
Mm-hmm.
energetic blockages. And then
Let
in the
me.
second
Mm-hmm.
part, when we do the meditation, it's where they can really be in touch with those deep rooted emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people experience um, telepathy,
Mm-hmm.
communication with their beloved ones, with their angels, so that's really powerful, because you're accessing your inner guidance, like your
Mm-hmm.
inner wisdom. And in a nutshell, that's what the spiritual practice does. It's just, it connects you with that inner guidance, with that
Mm-hmm.
inner tuition that we all have.
Um, Wow, that's very clear. Thank you for explaining it. That it just is a natural progression. It really makes sense to me. I've done a variety of breath work in the past, usually guided breath work. So two questions. The first one is about breath work, and the second one is going to be about if someone doesn't particularly see themselves as a spiritual person, how can how can they adapt to practices to make it still useful? So with the breath work, until people are really used to it, the really in-depth breath work, which is a very intense physical experience. Not there's relaxing breath work, which is just to still the mind, to be peaceful, to get relaxation, more what people think about kind of as part of sometimes like traditional yoga. Then there's more of what I call, as a layperson, but therapeutic breath work, which is kind of a very intense experience.
Yeah.
I know for some people it's hard to get to that experience if they haven't done it a lot without guidance, without someone who's kind of walking either them individually or as a group through. How would you recommend people kind of adventure into that? Or if they have done it in the past, but they have trouble getting it started on their own, what would you recommend?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because breath work is a very broad term. Anything you do with your breath can be considered breath work. And so it sounds so simple, but sometimes we forget that we're breathing and we forget to take deep breaths. I always say take 3 deep breaths during the day several times. And
Mm-hmm.
that's breath work. And what this does is it brings you back into the present moment. It regulates your nervous system. And so sometimes you're here in your mind, especially like when we're working and we might get a little stressed,
Mm-hmm.
overwhelmed with stuff that we have to do. Just take a minute, 3 deep breaths. That's your breath work right there. You don't need guidance. It's just, you don't need to pay for anything. It's just easy and accessible
Yeah.
anytime or as many times as you want.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously, if you want to go a little deeper, there are different types of breath work that you can do, even mixing with meditation. And so, if anybody's interested in doing this, they can actually just look it up on YouTube, like different techniques, because
Mm-hmm.
they're very simple. And once you learn how to do them and you feel them in your body,
Mm-hmm.
you can do it. You can go on and do it on your own. Though the one that I do, the sessions that I offer, I actually advise to find the guidance, to find either a group or a one-on-one, because it's not that the technique itself is difficult, it's not, but what
Mm-hmm.
happens in your system, what happens in your body, what happens in your mind can be a little bit scary sometimes. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like you don't.
Or you just want to stop and you're into it for 5 minutes and you're like, I don't feel like doing this. I mean, I know if when I've done it, like your whole body's like, this feels awkward or weird or uncomfortable, or this is
Yeah,
silly, or like I just don't want to do it. And if you don't have sort of either a group to encourage you or a leader or teacher to encourage
kind of
you,
like a
then
personal trainer.
it
You know, the
is. It's
personal
very
trainer is like,
much.
come on, keep going, and you're like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yes, no, it's so true. But when I continue and come out the other side, it feels absolutely phenomenal. It's
Yeah,
like your whole inner being has had a wonderful shower and you're re-energized and you just feel it's tremendous. Yeah, really
yeah,
tremendous.
and I
So,
think it's important to feel safe,
mhm.
to
Yeah.
feel safe to go deep.
Hmm.
Um, and then it's great when you find somebody that can hold space for you and
Hmm.
can go deeper with you.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Um, and then I guess the second question, which I already alluded to, but was, if someone doesn't find them feel like they're very spiritual, maybe they just feel extremely practical, maybe that's just their personality or what they prefer, or, how can how can they utilize some of these techniques even if they're not making it part of a spiritual practice, and but in a way that can help and heal?
Yeah. Sometimes we can just change the words and not use
Yeah.
the spiritual, because I always say, like, when we're talking about emotions, what is emotion? We don't see them, right?
Right.
We feel them. And
Yeah.
like I said, emotion is an energy in
Mm-hmm.
motion. So when we're talking about spirituality, we're also not seeing anything. Well, some people
Mm-hmm.
see, but essentially it's just a belief. It's just something that you feel. It's just something that
Mm-hmm.
you know. So, and the breath is the same thing, because in Latin, breath means a spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I see it is, we don't see air. Like, we don't know exactly what we're breathing, but we
Right.
just believe it. We
Right.
just believe it. We're just, it's like something that is happening all the time, even when we are asleep or unconscious.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, if anybody is skeptical about the word spiritual, or they don't necessarily feel like they are spiritual, they can
Mm-hmm.
just say, I'm going to deal with my emotions. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
look at them, and I'm going to take
Mm-hmm.
care of them. And the breath is really nothing spiritual. It's like, it is a spiritual, and it's also very
Right.
healing,
Right.
right?
Well, I think there's a lot of interdefinition there, and I think it actually can really open paths for some people in both directions, really, because um, so much is just the linguistics, the definitions, and how we all perceive things differently. So what might be a spiritual release for some person could be just an emotionally release for another. It might even be the same. So it's kind of, I like to try to keep an open mind and just kind of have a feeling for finding what works for me, because I know everything works differently for everyone. It's not one size fits all. Um,
Yeah.
but I think these techniques that you're talking about, whether it's with the breath and meditation, clearing that heart space, getting as we wrap up, let me ask you this: when you're clearing that heart space, you're kind of getting unstuck. What is sort of the objective that you're looking for? Is it for more self-love? Is it for a sense of calm? Is it many things? Or what is sort of what is the desired outcome, I guess?
Yeah. Just touching on what you were saying about it doesn't work for everybody. It's absolutely true. It's like, I say this all the time. It's like, meditation might not work for you, and that's
Yeah.
okay. You
Yeah.
can find another way to practice mindfulness. You can go for a walk in the park, you can go for a hike, and that could be your spiritual practice,
Mm-hmm.
right? When you're present, you can just breathe for a little bit in the morning. That can be your practice. So I always tell people to keep an open mind and try different things and find what works for you, because like you said, it's not that one thing will work for everybody. Otherwise, we would know what works for everybody, right?
Right. I know, right? There wouldn't be
Yeah,
so many methods and techniques, right?
yeah. And so, I guess there are many reasons why we work on our hearts and open our hearts. I would say the main thing is to love,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that is like our ultimate purpose here on planet Earth, is to learn, love, and I believe that we are love and light. And so when we love ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
we learn to love ourselves, we can love others, we can love
Mm-hmm.
everything. We essentially, I say that when you're loving yourself, you're loving the whole universe, and
Mm-hmm.
you're literally helping the world to heal. That's
Mm.
something that I always say too, is like, we work on ourselves individually, but we are part of the collective.
Mm-hmm.
So when you open your heart, you give, you just emanate light and love. People around you will feel love, because that's what you're emanating. And so you're contributing to the healing of the whole world. And
That's
so I would
just
say,
beautiful.
in a nutshell, that's, you just want to open your heart so that you can love yourself and you can love others and you can love your life. And it's related to the work you do as well. You can find joy in life, in this human experience. It is very hard for you to find joy in this whole human experience if you have a heart that's closed and if you're not loving yourself.
Absolutely. Well, I couldn't have summed that up better myself. That's absolutely beautiful. I just love that. In healing yourself, the idea of in healing yourself, you're also bringing healing to the world, which is just fantastic. And connecting to joy, connecting to that network of joy, maybe even the whole universe network of joy, right? Well, thank you so much, Will. This has been just wonderful. It's such a pleasure to have you here. I always just love your energy and your heart. What's the best website for people to reach you if they want to look up more about you and your work?
Well, thank you so much, Anne, for having me. It was a pleasure. Always a pleasure to connect with you. My website is my name, so it's willcaminada.com, and people can find me on socials with my name too. So
okay, and we'll put that also in the notes so that if anyone wants to see the link, they can find it there. And thank you all for joining us here today for this great conversation. I hope you'll check out more of Will's work. And as always, please like and subscribe to this podcast. And you can check out more about me on my website, AnneScottlin.com, at Twitter or Instagram at AnneScottlin, where I post every day. And my new book, Live for Joy, which you really might want to check out because I think it ties in very well to much of this conversation. You can find that on my website or at liveforjoybook.com. Or you can just go straight to Barnes & Noble and search my last name, Scottlin, Scottlin, or the book Live for Joy, and it will pop up. Thank you again for being here. I so look forward to seeing you all next week. And thanks again, Will. I want to hope you all have a joyful day. Bye-bye.
Bye.